They mocked the quiet woman in thrift store shoes as she boarded a $200 million yacht, until they found out she owned every ship in the harbor, including the one they were standing on. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel as a sign of support. Savannah Brooks stood at the edge of the dock in Newport, Rhode Island, her wide-brimmed hat shielding her from the late summer sun. The yacht towering before her was the kind most people only saw in movies. Sleek, modern, and reportedly worth $200 million. A chrome nameplate read "The Monarch" in elegant lettering. She glanced down at the embossed invitation in her hand. It was a charity gala hosted by financier Douglas Kane, and Savannah had been invited as a friend of a friend. She wasn't wearing designer couture or dripping in jewels. Her linen dress was simple, and her flats were scuffed from walking across town. She'd taken an Uber from her modest brownstone, and the doorman barely glanced at her as she stepped onto the gangplank. Inside, opulence screamed from every corner. Crystal chandeliers swayed gently with the yacht's movements, and servers with white gloves floated by carrying champagne on silver trays. The guests, all sleek hair, tailored suits, and expensive perfumes, buzzed with familiarity. They were old money, hedge fund royalty, or the children of tech billionaires. Savannah didn't belong, and everyone knew it. "Who let the help in?" A voice sneered behind her. She turned. A woman in a shimmering silver dress gave her a once-over and smirked. "Lost, sweetheart." Savannah smiled politely. "Just here for the fundraiser." The woman laughed and turned to her companions. "Maybe she's the entertainment." Others joined in, murmuring as Savannah walked past them. They made no effort to hide their amusement. She found a quiet corner near the railing, watching the boats bob in the harbor. Their laughter echoed behind her, but she stayed calm. A young man approached her cautiously. "You okay?" "Fine," Savannah replied. "People like to judge what they don't understand." He nodded. "I'm Nick. I don't think I've seen you around these circles." "That's probably because I'm not in them," she said with a slight smile. "Well, you should be. You carry yourself differently, like someone who doesn't need to prove anything." Savannah tilted her head. "Interesting observation." Nick grinned. "You going to bid on one of the auction items?" "Maybe," she said vaguely. The yacht was now slowly cruising along the Atlantic, the skyline fading in the distance. The party was in full swing. Music, laughter, deals being made with handshakes and whispers. Savannah's quiet presence continued to puzzle the guests. Later that evening, Douglas Kane took the microphone and welcomed everyone. He announced the auction, noting a very special announcement at the end of the night. Whispers flew around the room like wildfire. Savannah stood quietly, sipping a glass of water, while eyes followed her every move, some with disdain, others with curiosity. They had no idea who she was, and by the time this night was over, she would change everything. The ballroom on the Monarch buzzed with speculation as the sun dipped below the horizon. Savannah could feel the sideways glances and hushed whispers trail behind her like a wake. She kept her posture straight and her face unreadable, letting the soft ocean breeze cool her cheeks. "Who is she?" a man in a navy blazer murmured behind a raised champagne flute. "Some Instagram model hoping to snag a husband?" "Please," his date replied, rolling her eyes. "No one with that posture is fishing for a man. She walks like she owns the place." Savannah moved to a quieter deck, where soft jazz played and couples clinked glasses under fairy lights. She could hear bits of conversation: startup valuations, crypto portfolios, oil leases in Texas. A few people nodded politely to her, but quickly turned away, unsure of how to place her. Nick found her again near the glass railing. "You causing a stir without even trying," he said, smirking. She sipped her sparkling water. "I'm used to it." "You got these people spinning. You're like a riddle they can't solve." Savannah laughed softly. "Then let them wonder." Nick leaned closer. "So, tell me, how'd you end up here tonight?" "A friend invited me," she said simply. He raised an eyebrow. "That's it? Isn't that how most people get here? Invitations?" Nick chuckled. "Sure, but most come dressed to flex. You walked in like you had nothing to prove." Savannah gave him a sidelong glance. "That's because I don't." Inside, the charity auction was kicking off. A vintage Aston Martin went for $1.2 million. A weekend in Aspen fetched $300,000. An elite investor dinner, hosted by none other than Douglas Kane himself, started at $500,000. Savannah walked in as the next item was revealed. A week-long voyage on a new super yacht in the Caribbean, complete with staff, chef, and helicopter pad. The MC boasted it was a taste of ocean luxury, valued at over $20 million. Savannah's gaze narrowed slightly. That yacht was familiar. Bidding starts at $1 million, the MC announced. Hands shot up. Nick leaned in and whispered, "That's the Seraphim, right? The new build everyone's talking about?" She gave him a neutral look. "Yes, it is." "Wow, how do you— Wait, don't tell me you've been on it." Savannah didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward, raising her hand casually. $2 million, she said calmly. The room fell into stunned silence. The MC blinked. $2 million going once. Another hand went up from the back. 2.1. Savannah didn't hesitate. 5. Gasps echoed around the room. The MC cleared his throat. $5 million. Going once. Going twice. Sold. All eyes were on her now. Nick looked stunned. "You just dropped $5 million like it was nothing." Savannah turned to him, her eyes cool. "You haven't seen anything yet." The murmurs in the room turned to frantic chatter. The mystery woman just outbid billionaires without blinking. And now everyone really wanted to know, who exactly was Savannah Brooks? The energy aboard the Monarch had shifted. The ambient music and laughter gave way to a heavy undercurrent of curiosity, like the whole crowd had leaned slightly in Savannah's direction. A woman no one recognized had just made a $5 million bid without flinching, and now she was impossible to ignore. Douglas Kane stood at the bar nursing a glass of bourbon, watching her. His salt and pepper hair and fitted tux gave him the air of power he worked hard to maintain. Normally, he was the undisputed center of attention at his events. But tonight, that spotlight had drifted to Savannah. He tapped his assistant on the shoulder. "Find out who she is," he murmured. The assistant, a sharp-eyed man named Riley, nodded and pulled out his phone. Across the deck, Savannah leaned against the railing again, calm as ever. Nick returned with 2 glasses of sparkling cider. "Non-alcoholic, right?" he asked, handing one to her. "Good memory," she said, accepting it. "Okay," he started, "I'm officially intrigued. You're not just someone's plus one. You know these yachts, you just blew half the room's net worth, and you're the only one here who isn't trying to impress anyone. So what's your story?" Savannah took a long sip before answering. "I was born in Charleston, grew up working class. My dad ran a small marina." Nick blinked. "You're kidding." "I'm not. We couldn't afford much. I learned to sail on a beat-up fishing boat. The other kids had jet skis. I had salt in my hair and grease on my hands. And now you're bidding $5 million like it's pocket change." She shrugged. "A lot can change in 20 years. Before he could press further, Douglas Kane himself approached, his smile practiced but curious. "Mind if I interrupt?" Savannah turned to him coolly. "Not at all. I'm Douglas Kane. I don't believe we've met." "Savannah Brooks," she said, offering a firm handshake. He held her gaze a beat longer than necessary. "You certainly stirred up the room tonight." "I didn't realize generosity was so controversial," she replied, her tone sharp but polite. Kane smiled tightly. "Of course not, but let's say your presence is unexpected." "Good, I hate being predictable." Nick nearly choked on his drink. Kane chuckled, though his eyes were calculating. "May I ask what you do, Ms. Brooks?" Savannah gave him a smile that revealed nothing. "Let's just say I've made some investments." Riley returned and whispered something in Kane's ear. Whatever it was made him pause, his brow briefly furrowing. "Well," he said, recovering, "you're full of surprises." "You have no idea," Savannah replied. Kane gave a polite nod and walked away, his confidence slightly shaken. Nick stared at her. What did he just find out? Savannah swirled her cider and said softly, "Enough to make him nervous." For the first time that evening, the yacht's owner realized he wasn't the most powerful person on board, and Savannah Brooks had only just begun. Savannah watched the coastline fade as the Monarch drifted farther into the Atlantic. Spotlights danced across the ocean surface, and the hum of conversation rose again. But the mood was different now, quieter, more deliberate. People were watching her, whispering her name, searching Google under the tablecloths. She could feel the shift. The laughter from earlier had vanished, replaced by unease and curiosity. Even the servers now paused slightly longer when pouring her water, as if silently acknowledging her presence with new respect. Nick stood beside her, clearly processing everything. "Okay," he said slowly, "I just Googled you. I figured. You own something called Blue Wave Holdings? And holy crap, you're the majority stakeholder in North Star Yachting?" She finally smiled. "Took them long enough to figure it out. That means the Seraphim, the yacht up for auction tonight, it's yours?" Savannah nodded. "Designed it myself. Well, not the architecture. I hired someone brilliant for that. But the interiors, the energy efficiency, the crew program, all mine." Nick blinked. "You literally bid on your own yacht." She leaned in. "I doubled the auction value. That money will go to the Children's Hospital downtown. They're building a new trauma unit. Quietly, of course." He let out a low whistle. "So what else do you own?" Savannah stepped aside, gesturing toward the window overlooking the marina. "See those vessels docked off the coast? The Orchid, the Pacific Star, and the Tempest? Yeah, they're mine too. I own the whole fleet." Nick looked stunned. "You're not just in the yacht business. You are the yacht business. I started 10 years ago with one old sailboat I restored myself. Leased it out, saved the money, reinvested, bought a catamaran, then a mid-range yacht, started the company quietly. Let others take the spotlight while I grew the empire. You did all of this under the radar." "I prefer it that way," Savannah said. "If people don't see you coming, they can't stop you." Inside, Douglas Kane stood watching her from across the room. He now knew exactly who Savannah Brooks was. She just made half the room look like amateurs without even trying. He raised a glass toward her, a gesture of respect, or perhaps warning. She returned the gesture, cool and calm. Moments later, the MC announced the surprise of the evening, a private address from a special guest and patron of maritime innovation. All eyes turned as Savannah walked toward the stage. The room went silent. She took the mic with practiced ease. "Good evening," she began. "Most of you don't know me. That's by design. But tonight isn't about me. It's about vision, about pushing boundaries in business, sustainability, and generosity. And sometimes that means showing up quietly and letting your work speak for itself." A slow, stunned applause broke out. Nick stood in the back, grinning wide. "They laughed at her," he muttered to himself, "and she owns the whole damn harbor." After her short, powerful speech, Savannah stepped off the stage to a mixture of admiration and disbelief. The applause had been polite, some genuine, others hesitant. People still weren't sure what to make of her, but they were beginning to understand one thing clearly. Savannah Brooks wasn't some charity guest or social climber. She was a force. Douglas Kane intercepted her as she moved through the crowd. His expression was smoother now, like a man trying to pivot after a miscalculation. "Ms. Brooks," he said, voice low, "impressive speech. You certainly caught us off guard." "That wasn't my intention," she replied calmly. "Still," he continued, "I admire the strategy. You play your cards close to the chest." "I just don't believe in needing applause to validate progress." He chuckled dryly. "Well, you've got the applause now, and quite a few people scrambling to remember if they offended you." Savannah's eyes met his. "They did. But I didn't come here for an apology. I came for the cause." He hesitated for half a second, barely noticeable, but she caught it. She always caught the tells. "You know," he said, his tone shifting, "I've been thinking about expanding into custom yacht builds. I imagine someone with your experience could make that process profitable." Savannah tilted her head slightly. "Is this a business pitch, Douglas?" "Consider it a collaboration," she smiled. "If you're asking for a seat at the table, I hope you're willing to build your own chair." Before he could respond, she turned and walked away, leaving Kane standing with a stiff smile and furrowed brow. Back on the upper deck, Nick found her again. "You just turned down Douglas Kane on his own boat." I didn't turn him down, she said, sipping her drink. I redirected him. Nick laughed. I've never seen anything like this. You've got half the boardroom sharks circling you, and they don't even know whether to attack or beg for a partnership. They usually start by underestimating me, she replied. Then they either adapt or sink. A well-dressed couple approached, nervous and awkward, clearly rethinking their earlier mockery. The woman in the silver dress, who'd laughed when Savannah first boarded, was with them. Her expression was different now, less smug, more cautious. We just wanted to say, the woman began, we didn't realize who you were earlier. It was a misunderstanding. Savannah offered a cool smile. I'm not offended. It happens all the time. The woman relaxed slightly. You're very gracious. No, Savannah said, her voice soft but direct. I'm just focused. If I let every insult weigh me down, I'd never get anything done. The couple murmured an awkward goodbye and walked off. Nick raised an eyebrow. Savage. I'm not here to win popularity contests, she said. I came to build, to help, and maybe, just maybe, make the people who laughed regret it. He grinned. Mission accomplished. Savannah turned toward the ocean again, the moonlight casting a silver shimmer across the waves. She didn't need to say it aloud. Her fleet, her vision, her name. Everything was just getting started. Later that night, as the party began to wind down and the guests trickled to their private suites aboard the Monarch, Savannah stayed behind on the deck. The music was softer now, the ocean louder, and the air tinged with a cool salt breeze. She finally had a moment to herself. Nick joined her again, his loosened tie fluttering slightly in the wind. You always stay after the curtain falls? He asked. Always, Savannah said. This is when the truth floats to the surface. Nick leaned on the railing. You surprised everyone tonight, but I get the sense that none of this is really about showing off for you. It never was, she said. My father used to say, if you're doing it for applause, you're doing it for the wrong crowd. Nick nodded slowly. Tell me more about him. Savannah's eyes softened as she looked out over the water. He ran a small marina back in Charleston, barely kept it afloat. I helped him patch hulls, clean engines, anything to keep the boats running. He didn't care about wealth, he just loved the ocean. Nick stayed quiet, letting her speak. He died before he got to see any of this, she continued. Before my first major contract, before Blue Wave Holdings took off. But everything I do, every vessel I build, every initiative I fund, it's a tribute to him. He believed people should earn their place through hard work and humility. Nick exhaled. So that's what all this is. She nodded. I fund scholarships for girls who want to study marine engineering. I've got a quiet deal with the Coast Guard. Our retired yachts get repurposed for rescue missions. I don't need the spotlight. I need to leave a mark that matters. Nick looked at her with new respect. You're not just changing the yacht game, you're rewriting the rules. Just then, Riley, the assistant from earlier, approached nervously. Ms. Brooks, Mr. Kane would like to request a private meeting before disembarkation tomorrow morning. Savannah didn't even look at him. Tell Mr. Kane I'll be on the Seraphim by sunrise. If he wants to talk, he knows where to find me. Riley hesitated, then nodded and left. Nick gave her a half smile. Power move. No, she replied. Just boundaries. Down below, several guests peeked from their cabins, still whispering about the mysterious woman who'd outbid millionaires and called out the yacht mogul without raising her voice. Savannah didn't care. Let them talk. She'd already turned a childhood of scraped knees and stormy docks into an empire of floating palaces. She didn't need validation from anyone on this boat. Tomorrow, she said quietly to herself, they'll understand I'm not just another rich woman on a yacht. Nick glanced at her. What happens tomorrow? She smiled faintly. The tide turns. At dawn, a thin mist blanketed the marina. Most guests aboard the Monarch were still asleep, their designer shoes and crystal flutes now part of last night's foggy memories. But on a neighboring yacht, the sleek, majestic Seraphim, Savannah Brooks stood barefoot on the teak deck, sipping hot coffee and watching the sunrise. This was her moment. The Seraphim had been her personal passion project. Unlike other luxury vessels, it ran almost entirely on renewable energy. Solar panels, desalination systems, even a low-wake hull design to protect marine ecosystems. Every inch of it was a blend of elegance and intention. It didn't just float, it stood for something. A small boat approached, pulling alongside the Seraphim. Douglas Kane stepped out, looking polished but slightly uneasy in his blazer and deck shoes. Savannah greeted him without ceremony. "Morning." "Savannah," he said, trying to sound warm. "May I come aboard?" "You're already here." He climbed aboard and took in the vessel with a cautious eye. Beautiful yacht, even more impressive in person. "I know," she said simply. There was a pause. The only sound was the water gently lapping at the hull. "I came to apologize," Kane said. "About last night. I misjudged you." "I'm used to that," he sighed. "Look, I've been running the yacht scene in this city for 20 years. No one ever challenged me. Then you show up, quiet and sharp, and in one night, you make half the industry rethink their position. That kind of disruption, it rattles people." "I'm not here to rattle anyone," Savannah said, "but I won't shrink just to make them comfortable." Kane nodded. "Fair enough. I'd like to propose something." "Of course you would. I want to license your sustainable designs through my firm, with your name out front. No back-end deal. A true partnership." Savannah studied him. She could tell he meant it, not out of generosity, but out of survival. He knew the tide was turning, and he'd rather join the current than drown in it. "I'll consider it," she said, "but you'll need to clean up your operations. Ethical labor, green certifications, and full transparency. No shortcuts." He gave a short laugh. "You drive a hard bargain." "No," she corrected. "I set a high standard." Kane extended his hand. "Let me know." She didn't shake it. Instead, she turned and walked to the edge of the deck, overlooking the sleeping city. The harbor glistened gold under the rising sun. A moment later, Nick stepped aboard, carrying a brown paper bag. "Egg sandwiches," he said. "Figured you didn't eat yet." "You figured right." He handed her one, and the two of them stood in silence, eating breakfast as the city woke up below them. "You think Kane will follow through?" Nick asked. "He will," Savannah said. "He doesn't have a choice." "And what about you? What's next?" Savannah smiled. "I expand, one marina at a time." The Seraphim let out a low hum as her engines powered up, ready to lead the fleet. Savannah stood tall, her past behind her and her legacy just beginning. They had laughed when she stepped on that $200 million yacht, but now the ocean answered to her. Savannah Brooks arrived as a mystery and left as a legend. What began as quiet mockery turned into stunned admiration when the truth surfaced. She didn't just belong in their world, she owned it. With grit, vision, and grace, she built an empire from the docks up and rewrote the rules of success on her own terms. If you love Savannah's story and want more inspiring tales where underdogs rise and the tables turn, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a twist. New stories drop every week. Stay tuned.